What's up, everybody? Welcome into NBA DFS Live for Wednesday, January 6th. I am your host, Ben Husser, joined by Justin Bales today. Bales, we have a bigger slate than yesterday. But yesterday, man, we got to talk about it a little bit while we let some people join in here. Yesterday got crazy really fast. So it was getting close to 7:30. It was right around the 7 to 7:10 mark where we were getting all this crazy news about the Nets starting lineup being completely different than anyone had anticipated all day. So we had to deal with that. Ended up changing a lot. And then, we got this news after lock that Paul George, people were assuming that Kawhi would sit out. And it ended up being Paul George was the one that sat out. So I personally had a really good night swapping. I swapped Damian Lillard, Ed Davis to Lou Williams and Kawhi Leonard when we got that news that PG was going to be out. So it was a good night for me. I think you had a good night as well, right? You played Wancho, who James and I cannot believe we moved off him, man. I liked him a lot yesterday. He was a good play. I'm glad that you played him.
Yeah, I mean, I texted you right before lock, and I think all I said was, Jeff Green, are you serious? Yeah. No, I get it in cash. Green was a fine cash play. But Hernan Gomez just has like so much more upside, like so very clearly has more upside. So, you just make a small pivot like that. And I think in the tournament that I was in, it was the one single entry. I think Green was at like 35% or something ridiculous. And Hernan Gomez was like 13. I mean, I don't even care about the matchup or anything. Why in the world would you ever play Jeff Green at that high of ownership compared to just, using someone like Hernan Gomez? Even like if you were pivoting off of, there were other guys that were right around Green's price. Like I think Michael Green was 600 more or something. Like, I don't know. Speaking in tournaments, Jeff Green wasn't it for me.
Yeah, definitely didn't want him as chalk in tournaments, but it was an interesting slate, man. Tonight is going to be fun. So the big injury news that we have is the whole Clipper situation. So when PG rested last night, everyone was assuming that would mean that Kawhi would rest tonight and Paul George would play. It's now looking at 4 o'clock Eastern. It seems like 50-50 or greater that Paul George is not playing tonight, and I don't see why Kawhi would play on the second end of a back-to-back when he has not played a back-to-back in why did he even do it one time last season? I don't believe so. So it's been quite some time since Kawhi has played both ends of a back-to-back. So we can comfortably assume that, I guess both of them are going to be sitting out. So we're going to have a lot of value with the Clippers. Even if only one of Kawhi or PG plays, we're still going to get value with the Clippers regardless with one of them out. And then Christian Wood is questionable, so that's something that we can monitor. That's the first game of the night, so we're going to get that news in advance to make some decisions. So that's really like the big ones. There's some other smaller ones, but really the Clippers news is going to dominate the slate. We'll start at point guard, star-studded position: James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, Trae Young, Ben Simmons, De'Aaron Fox, Brogdon, all over 8K on DraftKings. Where are you going here? So I think that two guys that I wrote up in my article that I want to play one of them, I just couldn't decide, is Steph Curry and Trae Young. Steph obviously would make sense from a correlation standpoint if we're going to be playing a lot of Clippers guys to get him on the other side of that game. Plus, he's just been really good over the last couple games. And then Trae has dominated Charlotte. His last two games have been 53 and I think 61 DraftKings points against Charlotte. They're really bad at guarding the pick and roll, which is kind of what Trae Young does. He's really hit another level, right? Once they started really running the pick and roll. He's really good. I think it's a good matchup for him and John Collins, so I really like him. They're both under 10K, so those are two guys I'm looking at. How about you?
Yeah, I don't know which I prefer, honestly. I think at the 8K or higher, it's Steph Curry and Trae Young are more or less 1 and 2, kind of interchangeable. And then I think Malcolm Brogdon and then James Harden, and that would round out my top 4 of 8K or higher. I do think it's fine to go like De'Aaron Fox in tournaments. Russell Westbrook, feels fine. I probably won't be using him. His price is just a little bit high at this point, but it's just really star-studded. I do think that Steph Curry and Trae Young are pretty clearly the 1 and 2 for me, though.
Yeah, Harden is just a little too expensive for me. It's fine in tournaments to play some James Harden for sure, but he's the one guy that's like appropriately priced when like I think Curry and Trey both should probably be over 10K just for the sake that they should be. So you're kind of getting them at slight values, whereas he's appropriately priced. So that's kind of hurts him for me. Brogdon, I think, is interesting for sure at 8K. I
Mhm.
mean, his assists have kind of picked up the last couple games. That's a good price point, good matchup, obviously. So yeah, I like that call on Brogdon. In the mid tier, who do you like in the mid tier? I played Kobe White in cash last night, not really because I loved him. He just kind of like he just kind of fit in, and that worked out. He had a pretty good game. But who do you like in the mid tier point guard?
In the mid tier, I'm cool with Kobe White, honestly. I have no issues whatsoever. I am relatively fine with Chris Paul in tournaments. I wouldn't use him in cash, obviously. The guy that I really, really like tonight, though, is Lamelo Ball. Obviously, just gets a really good matchup against Atlanta. They surprisingly haven't been pushing the pace nearly as much. But I feel like if someone like Ball is in and he's pushing the pace, like Trae Young's just going to follow. He doesn't really care. And it feels like a shootout spot where you can use LaMelo Ball and Trae Young against each other, and if they both catch fire, they just can score a ridiculous amount. But the good thing about Ball is that he doesn't really need to score or shoot efficiently for him to really exceed value. It's only 6K. I think in his last game, he shot like 30% from the field or something, scored like 13 points, and still put up basically 40 DraftKings points. And it's just because he has triple double upside, which you don't generally see from too many guards in the NFL. And then obviously can add blocks to a lower level and steals at a pretty high level each night. And I'm not going to say that he took over Charlotte's rotation or anything, but he's now playing basically 30 plus minutes a night. So at 6,000, he's just way too cheap in my opinion. I feel like he should be at minimum 7 and probably honestly closer to 8 if he's going to be playing 30 plus, especially when he gets a good matchup like Atlanta.
Yeah, I love LaMelo tonight as well. I kind of mentioned to you before we started the stream, it would make sense that they would kind of want him out there to try and guard Trae Young just because he's so long. But regardless, the minutes have been pretty stable anyway, so I do like him. I think Markelle Fultz is kind of interesting for a couple hundred more than Ball too in tournaments. Just like the matchup against the Cavs for him. So I think you could look at him maybe if you were running a lot of teams. As far as value goes, there's not a ton at this position. I don't know who you're looking at. I think Halliburton's a little interesting at 47 as long as he's good to go. Um, I mean that's really about it. I think unless you want to get weird and use quickly or something like that.
I mean, I just don't love quickly because he played 18 minutes yesterday, and he played 15 straight. Like he came
Yeah,
in with 3 minutes left in the third and didn't leave the game. And like, what are the chances that happens again? I think George Hill, I mean, I don't necessarily hate at 4,500. He's not really my favorite, and more tournaments because he seems pretty boom or bust this year. But depending on the Clipper stuff, Patrick Beverly's 4K. He's coming off a really big game, and they could, just jam minutes down his throat to try to slow down Curry. And then at 4,400, it's Lou Williams. I don't really have any issues whatsoever with him, especially if Paul George is out. And then obviously if Kawhi's out too, he's going to be more or less the focal point of the offense. So I like both of them for cheap.
yeah. The Clippers guys are going to be super high owned, especially if both of those guys are out. So they're definitely in play for all formats. Shooting guard, I mean, some of the same guys we've talked about yet. Harden, Bradley Beal, Paul George, Zach Levine, Jaylen Brown, Van Vliet, and Booker. We'll throw Mitchell in there as well for like the higher priced guys. I think this is a good spot for Beal, assuming that Westbrook sees a lot of time on Ben Simmons. Like they played Philly the first game of the season. Beal had I think like 44 DraftKings points, so not great value at 9K, but I do think he's interesting. I don't think he'll get a ton of ownership. Paul George would be a lock if Kawhi missed and he played, so that's something to keep in your mind, just knowing. Because I don't know, what do you think the chances are we get that news, seeing that game's at 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah, we can almost guarantee you're going to get it after lock.
That's what I was thinking. So that's going to be interesting for sure. Levine, I think, is in a really good spot against Sacramento. Don't love the back-to-back and the fact that it was a close game. And, he played, 42, 41, 42 minutes last night. So I don't love that, but I really like the matchup. The Kings are not super great in transition. I think that it fits really well with this playing style. This matchup at 8,300, I think, is a pretty solid price point. So I don't know, who do you like? I want to throw Sexton in here as well with Garland out. Kind of a tough matchup against Orlando, but I kind of think the $7,200 price tag is actually interesting with Garland off the floor.
Yeah, Sexton I'm cool with. My number one guy, I think, is Zach Levine. I mean, if you just look at what he did last night, he scored 40 fantasy points, right? His usage was 23%. In the game before that, it was 36. In the game before that, 33, then up to 29. So every now and then he just has these games where his usage dips crazy, but I think that's more of an outlier because it happened earlier against the Wizards too. And even when that happens, he's still dropping 40 plus. So at only 83 in a plus matchup against Sacramento, I really like that. The other guy that I like is Victor Oladipo at 7K. With TJ Warren out, Jeremy Lamb's also out. Oladipo's playing a pretty big role in the offense. And he's just like an absurdly safe player. And then also comes with, like the 45, 50 fantasy point upside, especially in a good matchup against Houston. So I really like Oladipo, but top option is Zach Levine. And then obviously I like guys like Colin Sexton. Kobe White's pretty expensive. I wouldn't play White and Levine together, though. I'll say that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You wouldn't want to play them together. And I prefer Depot and Sexton, I think, to Kobe today. I like that point on Oladipo. I think he's too cheap at 7K. And James and I kind of were having this discussion yesterday about going more balanced and how we think it's a smart move to go balanced in tournaments with all the blowouts that have been happening. Like Oladipo is someone that if you're playing stars and scrubs, you're probably not going to land on at 7K because there's going to be other guys in the mid tier that you want to get to. But that's someone that if you're running a balanced team, you could get in. That's going to be low owned, and I think is pretty clearly a value at 7K. He should be a little bit more expensive than that, I think.
Yep, I completely agree with that.
As far as value goes, I mean, some of the same value here. You have the Clippers guys, Lou Williams, Luke Kennard, who we'll talk about a little bit more too. I think DeLon Wright could maybe get some talk throughout the industry today. I know he let everyone down with that nice 10 minutes the other night, but I think what happened was we were on the stream. That was Monday. We were on the stream together. I was assuming that Rose might sit out, but I think what really happened was Wright was the one that was supposed to sit out. And then
yeah, he was.
Yeah, and then Killian Hayes got hurt, and they kind of got screwed, and they had to put Wright in the game for a little bit. So I think that with Hayes out today, Wright's minutes will be more secure. They're not gonna I don't think they're gonna hit like a ceiling level output because Rose is still a factor, but he's still a value at 4,100 for sure, I think.
Yeah, that's a bit too cheap. I'll say at 54, Seth Curry. Obviously, he relies heavily on scoring, but when you get a matchup against a team like Washington, makes a lot of sense, and that's the type of game that you want to attack. And I don't necessarily love it, but Kevin Huerter's finally seeing some minutes, and he's only 4,500. He played over 30 in his last game. I know Bogdanovich is kind of hurt, and he's probable tonight, but I still think it's fine. Quickly, we have a question. It just says Aaron Holiday. I don't like Aaron Holiday, really. There's too much value for me to really play him. I don't know if you'd be willing to use him, though.
No, I don't think you need to use him today with all of the potential Clippers value you have, although he's not going to be high owned. So I guess if you made a lineup you really loved on DraftKings and you only had 3,300 left for a position and you just plugged him in, you could do it, but not someone that I'm probably super high on. He does randomly have good games once in a while, though.
I feel like I honestly might use Garrett Temple instead of him. They're both 33, and Garrett Temple's also not good, but he's scoring dependent and gets the matchup against Sacramento. So at least he's going to get 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, you would feel probably a little bit better about him, honestly.
Yeah. Also, I'll add Damian Dotson is going to play 30 plus probably, and he's only 4,200. Don't love him. Don't think he's a great fantasy option. He really doesn't do all that much while on the court, but if you need value, I mean, there's worse options.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that question up because my question thing's bugged and I can't see them. So I didn't want people to think I was ignoring them. The Dotson thing will be interesting because he wasn't chalk the other night, but he did get some ownership and had a decent game. I'm wondering, Okoro's going to be back tonight, so I think, Okoro was out in that last game, right? But he's going to be back tonight. So I think that maybe won't affect like the minutes that Dotson is going to play, but I mean, I know Okoro didn't do much in that last game he played, but you would
If
think that that's going to affect him a little bit, right?
if you're going to tell me that you're worried about the man that scored
I
4.75
know.
fantasy points in
He pulled a Tony Snell,
42
dude.
minutes,
He pulled a Tony Snell, dude. I don't know
that's
what to say.
dude, that is so much worse than Tony Snell. It's not even funny. 42 minutes.
Pulled a
He
Tony
scored
Snell.
less than 5. No,
That's bad.
I get what you're saying, and I can't imagine Okoro does that very often. Like, he's not a great fantasy option because he
No,
just
he's just
doesn't
not
do
a
that
high
much. He's
usage
more
player.
defensive.
Yeah.
But he's not going to drop under 5 in 40 plus minutes again, probably in his entire career.
That was insane.
That was crazy.
All right, we'll move on to small forward here. Jason, I'm not going to talk about Kawhi because we both think he sits. If he does play for whatever reason and PG's out, then yeah, you would probably want to swap to him. But I just don't see how he plays today. So you have Jason Tatum, Ben Simmons, Brendan Ingram, Jaylen Brown, Tobias, Chris Middleton, Gordon Hayward, Jimmy Butler, and then you can go all the way down to Depot. So I think Ingram, I think Ingram's going to see a lot of Lou Dort on defense, right? Which is kind of what we talked about on. When did they play? They just played them, right? Maybe that was New Year's Eve or something.
Yeah, I think New Year's Eve.
Yeah, so we're thinking he's going to see a lot of Lou Dort. I'm not going to say he's a bad play, but at 8,400, that definitely caps his upside, I think. I don't really weight individual matchups a ton, but I know that Oklahoma City is fine just completely putting Lou Dort on an island versus someone, and they just did it. And 34.8 is still good, but that's not going to cut it in tournaments at 8,400, right?
He also, Lou Dort's like the only player in the entire NBA that doesn't switch. They'll run screens and he'll just go straight through them. He doesn't. He literally just won't leave.
He's like a madman.
He's covering.
He's like the one guy that we know is going to be on somebody, and he held him to 34.8 DraftKings points on New Year's Eve, and that's not cutting it from 8,400. So, I think Tatum is pretty much good in all matchups at this point. I don't want to play him in cash at 9K against Miami, but interesting tournament option. Simmons, I would play Tatum over Simmons, I think, but I do think it's a good matchup because Washington just doesn't have a ton going at the rim. I'm not really scared of Thomas Bryant blocking Ben Simmons, right? Driving in. So I think Simmons is interesting, but not someone that I typically play unless Embiid is out.
Yeah, I think Tatum is my top one. I'm cool with Simmons or Ingram. Another couple higher priced guys. I don't really have any issues with Gordon Hayward besides the fact that I literally can never get him right when I play him.
He tilts me too much.
But he's in a good spot tonight, and if you're going Lamelo Ball and then you bring it back with Trae Young, imagine adding Gordon Hayward, who has pop-off potential too. And then 100 below that is Jimmy Butler. I don't trust him at all. I would strictly GPP, but 7,300 for what we know Jimmy Butler can do is pretty cheap. I just don't really love the matchup against Boston.
What's your take on RJ Barrett?
I'm fine with him because he's going to play 40 minutes. But I don't absolutely love him or anything. At 7,000, I don't mind it whatsoever. If someone tells me they're playing him, I'm just going to be like, go ahead, But I'm not really going to be dying to get him into my lineups personally.
Yeah, I think you and I both would prefer Depot, correct?
To Barrett, yeah. I would much rather prefer Depot.
All right, as far as value goes, Kennard is going to be chalky if these guys are out for the Clippers, and Batum as well. So very small sample size, but if you take George and Kawhi both off the floor this year, it's a 35-minute sample size. Kennard had the second highest usage rate on the team behind Lou Williams. It's 28%. Batum only had 2 minutes in that sample because he normally plays next to one of them. But both are going to be pretty chalk options if both those guys are out, right? And I think if even if we don't know the news heading into lock, they're still both going to have really high ownership, I think.
Yeah, because at this point it just seems, I guess likely would be the best word, at one of the two sits. And if that's the case, both Kennard and Batum are going to play bigger minutes. So, you're really just honestly, you're just banking on one of the two to sit for them to at least get the minutes, and then you're banking on both of them to sit for you to also get the usage.
Exactly. So do you like any pivots off of Kennard in tournaments? Okoro's 4K, and you have like Patrick Williams at 4,300 maybe.
I think Patrick Williams is fine, but I mean, very slim chance that I'm gonna pivot off of Kennard. I feel like he's pretty good chalk tonight.
All right, you have anyone else here? You want to move to power forward?
Tobias Harris, I'm cool with too. He's priced up a little bit. I forgot to mention him, but that's basically it. I feel like it's either Kennard, Batum, or you're spending like 7K plus. There's no real middle options. I feel like it's small forward.
Yeah, I agree. Power forward, Giannis 10-9. Great play. Probably not someone we're going to play in cash, but great play nonetheless. Julius Randle at 95. Man, the price tag is getting up there for Julius Randle, but I'm really interested in him again today. I think I can't make a case for him like in cash games at 9,500, but if Nerlens Noel is out again, this is allowing Randle to play so much center. Like, he is just dominating at center for the Knicks. And if Nerlens is out again, like, we're going to see a lot of the same. Utah is on a back-to-back. They didn't play well last night, but they are on a back-to-back. So, I don't know. Like, where are you
just
at
cut
on...
out. I don't know.
Okay. Utah just played so bad last night, but they are on a back-to-back. So if Nerlens is out, what's your take on Randle? And then obviously Giannis, like, probably not playing him in cash unless crazy value opens up.
Yeah, the worst thing in the world for your team in real life basketball is to play Julius Randle 40+ minutes a night and let the offense run through him. The best thing in the world for fantasy is getting to watch Julius Randle play 40+ minutes a night and the offense run through him. It's just fun, but you're not going to win games that way. But they're doing it. So 100% fine with Randle. I feel like I would probably rather go Sabonis for a few hundred cheaper. I don't know if you also like Sabonis, but he's not really going to get the 40+ minutes probably, but he'll get pretty close. And I mean, the matchup against Houston's really good.
Yeah, really good matchup. All three of those guys are really good plays, I feel. Dropping down a little bit, Zion. I think Zion is a good play. I know he did absolutely nothing against... The last time they played Oklahoma City, he had 18.3 DraftKings points. Only played like 16, 17 minutes in that game. Like, he got in foul trouble. It was a blowout. It was just a really weird situation. But I think with Ingram potentially on Dort, that does open up for Zion to have a really good game. Okay, so did you see this update just now from the Clippers?
I did not know. What's up?
All right, so Paul George is officially listed as questionable. Kawhi Leonard is not on the injury report.
Oh, so he's just playing.
This is so weird because he has like never played back-to-backs like in recent times. And he sat out the front of a back-to-back earlier this year.
New year, new Kawhi, baby.
Maybe 2021's the year Kawhi's playing back-to-backs. Okay, so we'll say PG is out and Kawhi's in. You're going to play Kawhi, and then probably. I think Lou Will is still fine, and I think Pat Bev would still be fine.
Yeah,
Batum probably still fine as well, honestly, but. Like, it wouldn't be the point where I want to just jam in, like, 5 Clippers guys. Because, I would just want Kawhi and a couple value options, probably.
I feel like Batum and Kennard lose the value, but I don't necessarily think they're terrible plays or anything.
Yeah, okay, so that'll be interesting.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Marcus Morris now might play.
Okay, yeah, so that would... If he played, that would definitely affect Batum and Kennard, right? So I guess...
Wait and see.
Yeah, definitely wait and see. But if we painted this picture of Kawhi plays, PG's out, and Morris plays, I would probably play Kawhi and Lou Will. But
Jacob Run asked if the NBA established if they're going to fine players for sitting televised games. As far as I'm aware, they are.
I don't think it's a player fine. I think the team. The team gets fined like $100,000 or something. But I just don't think so. If Kawhi plays. Like, we were assuming that the Clippers and Steve Ballmer just didn't care, and they would just rest him and just pay $100,000 because Steve Ballmer has unlimited money. So what does it really matter?
They don't care whatsoever about
But
that.
if they are going to comply, and we're assuming Kawhi plays, like PG was injured and missed last night, so they're not going to get in trouble for him missing tonight as well with this ankle injury or whatever. I don't know. So this is an interesting situation. So definitely, like, again, I wrote in my Building Blocks article today, last night was a really good night to be in Discord because obviously you have Bales, myself, James, Joey, like we're all in there talking about this stuff when it happens, and we know like what to do if certain situations happen. So you don't really have to stress about it. You can just hop in Discord and we'll be talking about it. So that's going to be something to definitely watch after lock or leading up to lock. Back on track here. Zion, where are you at with him today? I do think he's a good tournament play.
Yeah, I'm fine. I feel like everyone's going to avoid him because of what he did last time, but like you shouldn't really be taking that into account. You should be looking at, what should have happened and the future. And at 7,800, it's a little too cheap for him. I'm cool with him in tournaments.
Yeah. Down to the mid-tier, one guy that stuck out to me was Chris Boucher. Again, for tournaments, what's your take on him? Do you like any of these mid-tier power forwards today?
I don't love the mid-tier in this. I think PJ Washington at 5,000, that's actually getting pretty cheap too, is fine for tournaments. And Boucher, I have no issues with. I feel like you can literally always just play him because he can score so many fantasy points in such a short amount of time. But I feel like he's not topping my list or anything, though.
Yeah, more of a GPP play. Washington, I think Washington is better than Boucher if you needed one of those guys for cash.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, probably.
Yeah, and then, like, I can't believe, is Bobby Portis 5K? He is. Well, this is unbelievable.
Why?
It's just funny because he's literally been eating in garbage time for like the last 2 weeks, and it's just got him all the way. Like, what was he priced at the beginning of the year? He had to be like in the 3K range. He was. The first slate of the year, he was 3,500. He's up to 5K off of just blowout garbage domination, dude.
Hey, I'm not gonna play.
No, I'm not playing him either. But interesting. Just his price is interesting. Do you like any of the value options, like non-Clippers guys, which we've already discussed that?
Yeah, Kelly Olynyk's one of my favorite plays tonight. People act like he's not getting minutes. He is. He's sitting right under 30. It's been high 20s for 3 straight games.
Revenge game.
Yeah, also a revenge game. And Kelly Olynyk, hear me out, is a good fantasy player. So I don't know why he like constantly goes overlooked. It's a little weird to me, but at 4,400, it feels like his price is going to get up over 5K very soon. So keep taking advantage of it if you want.
Yeah, you could sell me on some Olynyk. We'll move to center here, finish things out. And like Giannis is center eligible on DK, but we talked about him a little bit. You have Embiid, Julius Randle, Sabonis, Vucevic, Drummond, Bam. So I think I told you before we hopped on here, I think Drummond is going to get a lot of ownership on DraftKings tonight. I haven't checked any ownership projections or anything yet, but it just seems to me if people, like, I don't know what people are going to do, but I know that Drummond has already been kind of chalky a couple slates this year, and now he's down to 8,600 on DK. So I think people, I think optimizers will like him. I'll pull up our projections right now and see the center what we have. But, yeah, I mean, he's grading out as the second highest value at the center position. 47 DraftKings points is what we're projecting him for. It's the third highest at this position. So I think Drummond is going to be pretty chalky today. That's someone I'm fine, like, not playing if he's going to be chalk. He has struggled against Vooch the last couple of seasons for whatever reason. I know he got in foul trouble in that last game, but struggled again. Like, 37 isn't bad, right? It's not like he had 20 DraftKings points.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm not thrilled with 37 DraftKings points at 8,600 in tournaments.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's just center is stacked. There's so many good plays. Like, if you want to go to the very top, Joel Embiid, no issues whatsoever. I agree with you about Drummond probably being overpriced for this matchup, and he's a good fade, especially if he's chalky. But at the same time, he can still score 60 against anyone. Clint Capella, Rudy Gobert are 67 and 76. They're both great plays. You have guys that we talked about at power forward that also are center eligible. Mason Plumlee even is like still only 5,500. I don't know how, but that's still way too cheap. I know it's a tough matchup, but I feel like you can use him. DeAndre Ayton, and then Rashawn Holmes at 5,900. He burned us like no tomorrow the last time, or his last game. Immediately got in foul trouble against the Warriors. I feel like we can 100% go right back to him against Chicago. And the 6K doesn't really represent his upside for when he's playing 30-plus minutes. So he's like the perfect tournament option tonight.
Yeah, I like Wendell Carter on the opposite side of that game as well. Kings are just not great defensively against big men, so I think he could have a decent day. I like Collins. I talked about, I think Capella I think is a great play. I have no problems with Capella, but I think just stacking Trey with John Collins is interesting and hoping that they just go to work in the pick and roll. And then the other guy, I think Steven Adams' little revenge action is kind of interesting just because Oklahoma City's really bad against big men. And especially if Zion's kind of just doing whatever he's been doing, maybe Steven Adams could have a decent day. But not these are not guys I want to play in cash, just interesting plays that I'll look at in tournaments.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Is there anyone super cheap? I know Olynyk's 44. You can play him at center on DK, but is there anyone else?
No, I don't think I would go really anywhere below Olynyk.
Any Brook Lopez at 42? I would rather play Olynyk, but I just bring it.
Yeah, Lopez isn't my least favorite, but I would just play Olynyk, honestly.
Yeah. Gobert, I guess, is interesting at his price tag, given how bad the Knicks are defensively against big men. That could be interesting. It's just someone
Especially
that you don't end on in cash ever, but
imagine Julius Randle against him. He was just going to
just dominate. Right, for sure. Yeah. All right. I think we covered the positions pretty well. There's a lot of moving parts right now with these injuries, so we're going to have to wait and see how this slate looks like in a couple hours. Before we head out, Bales, give me a bold call for tonight's slate.
Lamelo Ball gets his first triple-double.
Okay. I had a Lamelo call the last time we were on the stream, so I see that you have now taken him off the board.
Taking over.
I'll go with Trae Young. Scores. What? I don't know. I'll go 40 points and 15 dimes for Trae Young.
I like it. We have a few questions real quick before we go.
Yeah, we'll answer them.
All right. Besides Trae Young and John Collins, what two other Hawks should I use for the stat hero build? For me, it basically just has to be Clint Capella and Kevin Huerter, right?
Yeah, you definitely want Trae. Definitely want Trae, Capella, and Collins, and then I think you can pick. You could probably pick Huerter or
Hunter.
Yeah, DeAndre Hunter. I think that it's one of those two with Trae, Collins, and Capella.
Is Woods from Houston sitting tonight? He's questionable if he sits. Yeah, me and Ben talked about this before we got on. We didn't really touch on it too much. Boogie would be a solid value play, we believe.
Yeah.
And then thoughts on Bismack Biyombo. Do you have any thoughts? He's kind of getting a little expensive at this point, but he is playing well.
Yeah, I just don't like his price tag. He was fine when he was cheap, but $5K. I mean, you have Wendell Carter for 400 more. I would rather play him, I think.
The good thing about Biyombo is that he's actually seeing reasonable usage. It's not high or anything, but it's in the higher teens, 17, 18%, and that's actually not that bad for a center. I wouldn't prioritize him, but I do think against Atlanta, it's reasonable.
Yeah. All right, I think that does it. Obviously, if you guys have any other questions, we will be in Discord. You can ask us there. Be sure to check out all of our free content and the projections that you see on the screen. You can access those for free, dfskarma.com, under the basketball tab. I'm not on the stream tomorrow. I think it's a low amount of games anyways. I think it's 4 or 5 games. Yeah. So not that great of a slate. But I'll be back on Friday. Good luck tonight, and we'll see you guys later.